So recently, a bunch of unaired pilots found their way online, dating back to the 90s. What I want to do is look at these pilots and determine two things. 1, did it have potential? And 2, how different would popular culture be if this pilot was picked up for series? Today we're opening up the pilot vault and looking at the pilot for a show called The News, an unaired pilot from 2007 where Rachel Boston plays a reporter at a local TV news station in Arizona. Oh, and Jay Harrington is in this, making this his second appearance on Pilot Vault after he played Nathan in the pilot Nathan vs. Nurture. Let's dive in and see what this pilot has to offer. We start with a pretty fast-paced opening, with reporters walking around doing news stuff. I've always liked this as a setting. I love the Newsroom, but then again, I'm a big Aaron Sorkin fan. If he wrote a sitcom set in a coal mine, I'd probably watch it. This is a little more light-hearted though. Think more news radio than the Newsroom. But the dialogue is quickly paced, so it's similar in style to Aaron Sorkin. It's like that meme, kinda copy your homework, sure, but don't make it obvious. They're trying very hard to be Aaron Sorkin in this, but the writer just doesn't have the skills, so the dialogue isn't as poetic or interesting. This guy bows to Rachel. Look at that bow. That's a bow that Larry David would love. Remember that episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry spent the entire thing stressing about a bow someone gave him, and he was worried about it not being respectful enough? You can't say that one isn't respectful. Speaking of Curb, I have a pilot starring Richard Lewis where he plays a doorman. It was shot in the 80s and the quality is pretty bad, but it might be an interesting pilot to cover on Pilot Vault. Let me know if you want me to talk about it. This old guy is the director of news, and he gives us a bit of exposition, telling us that Reese, this other guy, one of the newsreaders, knows that Rachel killed his story, so now he's mad at her. Reese is only in this for a short time, then he disappears to go on a bit of a side quest. We'll get into that in a moment. Now, this assistant character is basically written for Jenna Ortega. Wait, what year was this? 2007, so it was basically written for Aubrey Plaza. Do you reckon Aubrey is gutted that Jenna Ortega came along and stole their thunder a little bit? She definitely would have been Wednesday and in the Beetlejuice sequel if it wasn't for Jenna. We then meet Jay Harrington, one of the field reporters. He doesn't mention his dad at any point, but I'm certain Bill Pullman is just slightly off screen. Nathan goes off on a rant, saying a whole bunch of stuff that he shouldn't be saying. He talks about Bin Laden and stuff, despite the fact that the only reason why they cut to him was for him to talk about the weather. So yeah, a little off topic. They bring Nathan into the office to yell at him for going off script. He's pretty laid back about the whole thing. He's very Jim-like. You know what's perfect about that comparison? I could have been talking about Jim from The Office or Jim from the Newsroom there, and it would have worked either way. Now, I know this assistant was told to read all their lines as dull as possible, and she still manages to say them with more emotion than that guy from the Chris Evans sitcom. God, that guy was wooden. But come on, this isn't funny.
11 people called in after Judd's live shot. 9 thought he was funny, 1 thought his hair looked weird, and 1 guy threatened to beat Recep in the parking lot after the show.
Look, it's just boring. It does feel like they watched an episode of Parks and Rec and were like, April is so dry and hilarious. Do it exactly like that. But weirdly, Parks and Rec didn't come out until 2009, 2 years after this. Maybe Parks and Rec stole from these guys. The director of news comments on how Nathan and Rachel used to be close, but now they aren't so close. It's hinted that there was once a bit of a romantic relationship between them. You know what, I'll explain it now because we're not going to focus too much on this storyline, because it's not very interesting. But basically, the news director has some CCTV footage of 2 people doing it in the office, and Rachel obviously yells at everyone for it because that's her job, but she's being a bit of a hypocrite because she was the one who was caught on tape doing it with Nathan after hours. How terrible is this footage if you can't identify who it was? Surely they need to upgrade them. What's the point of them otherwise? Yeah, 3 guys broke into the news office and stole everything. Did you catch them on CCTV? Well, Yeah, but it's not very clear. I'm pretty sure 2 of them were human though. Then we get to the meeting of the reporters. I loved these scenes when they did them on the newsroom. They always stood out as they were opportunities for everyone to shine and play to their strengths. But this scene isn't well written enough for that, so it's a bit of a dull one really. Then we meet Gretchen, played by Julie Gonzalo, who was in Castle and the Dallas reboot. I used to love that Dallas reboot. I stopped watching it after Larry Hagman passed away. Maybe I should revisit that and see what's going on. Oh wait, it was cancelled, wasn't it? I think it was cancelled the year after he passed away. But it was a decent show, but I suppose he couldn't keep the viewing figures after Larry went. That's Dallas, baby. We then get a bit of drama where Rachel discovers that Nathan had lunch with someone and might be looking for a new job. We're meant to care about this. Then there's a breaking news story, a car chase. Reese goes down to the border to report on an immigration story, but he's clearly doing this all wrong because he's not wearing a cowboy hat the wrong way round. How will they know that he's cool? He's then robbed by the immigrants. That's just racist. What's funny about that? So, Reese is in the desert, stranded after being robbed. Saul Goodman then asks him what he would do if he had a time machine. Wait, no, that was a different show. The men all have a chat about Rachel. It's not very interesting. It feels like we're really padding for time here. A good pilot script should feel busy, not chock full of scenes that make it seem like they were just put in there to pad the runtime a little bit. Then Julie offers to go on air, since Reese is stranded in the desert. She's never done this before, but she seems to fit right in. We then cut to a bar, and wow, look how awful the green screen work on that TV is. We can do better on this channel. They have no excuse at all. Reese makes it to a border where a cop almost kills him because he thinks he's an immigrant. God bless America. For some reason, this sitcom seems to be obsessed with making jokes where immigrants are portrayed in a negative light. The news director referred to Dick Cheney as the vice president, and I was really confused for a moment until I remembered this was 2007 and Obama wasn't president until 2008. It threw me off. This pilot doesn't feel very 2007. Maybe it was ahead of its time, but it's not great, so I don't know what to say about it really. I suppose something can be ahead of its time and not very good at the same time. They have some drama where Tony Soprano here has to take the show off air, and we end on a big moment between Nathan and Rachel where they talk about the chemistry between them, and it was clearly setting up a will they won't they, where they would inevitably end up together in a few seasons' time. But for now, Julie is in the way because she's clearly making the moves on Nathan. She's basically the Karen Filippelli of this scenario. This is the second pilot we've seen where Jay Harrington plays a successful man in his field who's also a womanizer. Is that like the one constant in this shared unaired pilot cinematic universe? Jay Harrington will sleep around. This is our version of Uncle Ben dying. The one constant. And we have like a post-credit scene, like it's a Marvel movie, where Reese is stranded in Mexico. He's then immediately mugged. Not a great post-credit scene. He didn't even bump into another superhero. Have you seen that meme where it says like, Marvel fans will stay for the full credits just to hear a man say, I am Mimo Man, and then leave? That's what I wanted. I wanted the guy from the newsroom to show up and say, we're putting together a team. All we got was more racism. There was less racism in the post-credit scene for the Kingsman prequel. I still can't believe that the post-credit scene for that film had Adolf Hitler. They did like a Marvel post-credit scene just with Hitler. Teasing World War II. Stupid. So, where does this pilot rank among the other unaired pilots that we've talked about? Well, it's the second pilot in a row that just sort of went for the racism equals funny thing. So not good. But this wasn't trying to go for a laugh a minute like Single White Millionaire was, so we can't hate on it too much for not being hilarious. I'm gonna stick it on the end of the meh category. It was about as good as Beach Lane, so that's more than fair. Right, are there any other unaired pilots you want me to talk about? If so, then let me know in the comments. And subscribe, help us get to 4K. Right, I'll let you go. Bye.